Hello and welcome to Criminal History. Today's video is going to explore the most disturbing band of all time, Mayhem.
A form of music they say has disturbing satanic overtones. It's called black metal music and encourages devil worship and the desecration of churches.
In the world of music and all the showmanship it entails, it's hard to decipher just what message the band or artist really believes. Pop musicians and rappers often throw out occultist Illuminati-esque satanic symbology, but often this is just to create a mystique and a buzz. However, there is one band that truly embraces the evil Satanism that they portrayed, with horrifying and deadly consequences. That band would be the black metal band Mayhem. Mayhem was co-founded by Oystein Arseth, who would later be known as his more notorious moniker Euronymous. This name was taken from the Greek demon Euronymous, an underworld spirit that ate the flesh of dead corpses. As we will soon explore, this is the perfect name for his morbid and disturbing character. His evil deeds would even lead to his eventual early demise. He was born in Surnadal, Norway in 1968, a tiny town of less than 5,000 people. It is incredible that such a town would birth such a disturbingly influential person, philosophy and sound. Not much is known of his childhood, other than early influences from metal bands such as Black Sabbath, Slayer, Iron Maiden and Judas Priest. However, as stated by himself, his main influences were Venom, Bathory, Hellhammer and Sodom. He was said to be a rebellious child, but a 1993 article did much to dispel this. The superintendent and a teacher from his school described him as a positive, calm, kind and modest boy. His parents also described him as being a kind child with a healthy, normal childhood. There were little clues to why and how he became the monster he would evolve into. Black metal is an extreme form of heavy metal rock music, encapsulating and glorifying dark themes of death and Satanism. An English band named Venom was said to be the founding members of this new branch of extreme metal music. Their first album itself was actually called Black Metal, and was full to the brim of Satanism, dark themes and more hardcore energy in terms of sound. In 1984, Euronymous, alongside bassist John Stubberud or Necro Butcher and drummer Kjetil Mayhem, would form the band Mayhem. Initially, Arseth was known by the stage name Destructor, before changing to the more fitting and notorious Euronymous, a name that would forever linger in the bowels of the musical afterlife. It was not long before the band attracted an underground cult following. However, the band struggled to find a stable lead singer to outfit the group. For example, Erik Messiah Normheim and Sven Erik Christensen, aka Maniac, tried out for the band before quitting. Maniac, however, did lend his vocals to their first EP after a couple of years' service in the band. This was known as Death Crush. This was a toned-down version of how dark and energetic their music would later become. However, it was still such a unique sound that sound technicians did not know how to record or mix the sound properly. However, this made the CD sound raw and real, helping it achieve 1,000 sales in Norway alone. The group would see more changes in 1988 when co-founder Mannheim left the band to be replaced by drummer Jan Axel Blomberg or Hellhammer. The next change in band member helped shape and mould the band into the morbidly dark sound they would become known for. The lead singer, Maniac, left to be replaced by Dead. Per Ingvar Pelle Olin, known professionally as Dead, was already a seasoned performer by the time he joined the band. He sang for a band named Morbid and released a demo in 1987 named December Moon. This showcased his powerfully evil-sounding voice that seemed to retch hate into a microphone. Fascinated with Mayhem, Dead aspired to join the band. In order to outline his wish to join them, Dead would send Necro Butcher a disturbing package. This contained his demo, Plans for the Future, and the crucified, decomposing mouse. It wasn't long before he flew to Norway to become the lead singer and the face of the band. It was clear, and perhaps not surprising given his chosen stage name, that he was deeply nihilistic and obsessed with death. For example, he would immerse himself with the smell of death by sleeping with dead birds. He would also bury his performance clothes so that when he dug them up and wore them, they would smell like a grave. He even carried around with him a dead crow in a plastic bag, and before a gig would take a deep smell. This was to ensure he had the smell of decomposing death in his nostrils as he played. He also liked to look skinny, as this made him both closer to death and look more like a skeleton. Aesthetically, his character helped boost the band even further in its culthood. He would wear black and white makeup similar to Heath Ledger's Joker. The style he used was known as corpse paint, to make him appear as the blood-drained corpse of a dead body, and he was one of the first performers to do this. As his stage presence developed, he would also bring pig heads to gigs and throw them into the audience. He also wrote many of the songs that would later be on their first official album. As a deeply mentally ill person, obsessed with death and destruction, he also brought this vision to his stage performances. He would harm himself on stage, which worried and amazed onlookers. However, Euronymous, rather than try and get him help, would encourage this side of him, egging on his harmful acts. Euronymous and Dead had a strange relationship, often arguing and fighting. However, most disturbingly was Euronymous' influence in trying to get Dead to unalive himself, which he eventually did. Euronymous saw his bandmate's death and his on-stage antics as nothing more than a great way to market the band as the most hardcore of them all. In 1991, in a secluded house in Krakstad, Norway, Dead would finally succumb to the death he so desperately coveted. As the famous quote goes, if you gaze long enough into an abyss, the abyss will gaze back into you. Dead was a solitary creature that liked to isolate himself, and Euronymous would often antagonize him. For example, he once continuously played synth music to annoy him, so much that Dead fled into the woods to be alone in peace. But Euronymous chased after him with a shotgun, firing it into the air. It has also been claimed that Dead also stabbed Euronymous on one occasion. It was April 18th when Dead finally had enough and embraced the death that he was fascinated by. He used a knife across the wrist and a shotgun to the head to finish himself off. The bizarre note he left behind merely read, "Excuse the blood, but I have slit my wrists and neck. It was the intention that I would die in the woods so that it would take a few days before I was possibly found. I belong in the woods and have always done so. No one will understand the reason for this anyway." To give some semblance of an explanation, I'm not a human. This is just a dream, and soon I will awake. It was too cold and the blood was coagulating all the time, plus my new knife is too dull. If I don't succeed dying to the knife, I will blow all the shit out of my skull. Yet, I do not know. I left all my lyrics by Let the Good Times Roll, plus the rest of my money. Whoever finds it gets the fucking thing. As a last salvation, may I present Life Eternal. Do whatever you want with the thing. I didn't come up with this now, but 17 years ago. A dream of another existence, you wish to die, a dream of another world. You pray for death. To release the soul, one must die. To find peace inside, you must get eternal. I am immortal, but am I human? How beautiful life is now, when my time has come, a human destiny. But nothing human inside. What will be left of me when I'm dead? There was nothing when I lived. What you found was eternal death. No one will ever miss you. It was Euronymous that finally stumbled across the body, but instead of being distraught and mournful, he was filled with excitement. He rushed off to the nearest shop, and what he bought from that shop was a disposable camera. He used that camera to take pictures of the body, whilst also taking bone fragments to make jewellery with. He would even gift pieces of his skull to people in the black metal scene. He also claimed that he consumed parts of Dead's brain. A bootleg album named Dawn of the Black Hearts would feature the photograph as its album cover. Euronymous then phoned Necrobutcher to tell him the news. Euronymous described it as cool, enraging him. Necrobutcher demanded he destroy the pictures, but after he did not do this, he left the band. This was part of the psyche of Euronymous. Realness was seemingly more important to him than commercial success and sales. He wanted to keep black metal a hardcore subculture rather than a commercial trend for the masses, and would ridicule other bands for what he saw as selling out. However, other band members, such as Dead himself, did aspire to be a financial success, but Euronymous would use his band members' death to push his ideology for black metal. He falsely claimed Dead took his own life as black metal had sold out and had become a commercial trend. Euronymous used his infamous reputation to open a record store in Oslo named Helvete, or Hell in English. Furthermore, he used this as his headquarters for his new record label, Deathlike Silent Productions. This gave him a grip over the black metal scene, and he became an influential cult-like figure in the genre. He even began to write a list of rules one had to follow to be a real member of the black metal scene. First and foremost, it was essential that everyone in the scene was a Satanist. He also bizarrely claimed that only worthy listeners should be allowed to enjoy black metal. This allowed him to position himself as the leader of an exclusive elitist genre. This also allowed him to reform the band Mayhem with figures already established in the industry. Steen Johansson, or Occultist, would take the place of Dead as the lead singer, but was later replaced by Attila. Varg Vikernes, aka Burzum, would join the band as a bassist, which led to even more chaos. It has been said that Euronymous and Vikernes would begin a twisted rivalry with each other, each trying to out-evil the other. Although Euronymous did not see certain listeners of his music as worthy, he and Vikernes would conspire to bring black metal to the masses. To do this, they would covet controversy. For example, Vikernes anonymously spoke to journalists, claiming he was responsible for a number of church burnings that happened across Norway. He even claimed that he had killed a man in the town of Lillehammer. This tied in well with the hysterical, media-driven global fear of Satanism, which would later be known as satanic panic.
It's connected to devil worship. That's the focus tonight of Lonnie Lardner's special report on Satanism. But we want to warn you now that some things you're about to see and hear might be too graphic for children. Lonnie.
Well, Terry, authorities tell us that the most serious or perhaps the most dangerous kind of devil worship comes in the form of underground cults. Most of them are very secretive, usually organizing clandestine rituals in the dark of night.
Warning signs of satanic behavior may be apparent, such as a sudden, bitterly antagonistic attitude towards family and religion, a drastic decline in academic performance, a reclusive behavior pattern, and listening exclusively to heavy metal rock music.
This did indeed give them the notoriety they wanted, but it also drew heat from authorities. Vikernes was arrested alongside other members of the community for these crimes. Specifically, he was found guilty of the arson and attempted arson of a Sand Church and Storviet Church in Bergen, the arson of Skjord Church in Vinderfjord, and the arson of Holmenkollen Chapel in Oslo. He officially claimed no responsibility for the burnings, but claimed they were done in revenge for the Christian desecration of Viking graves and temples. Euronymous would speak about the burnings on a radio show in 1993, stating,
Så planlegger en del ekstreme, fundamentalistiske kristne grupperinger i Vest-Norge visse aksjoner mot oss. Og det synes vi jævlig bra. Vi ønsker at kristne skal bli militante. Det verste vi ser, det disse nykristne som skal gå rundt og være gode og snille med hele verden. Det utrolig irriterende. Vi ønsker å se kristne med våpen i hånd som går rundt her for å drepe oss. Det det vi ønsker. Så vi mener at ved våre aktiviteter, hvis vi klarer å få de kristne til å bli mer ekstreme, så har vi gjort noe jævlig bra.
Ni försöker provocera de kristna?
Ja.
They must feel that there is a dark, evil power present that they have to fight, which will make them more extreme. We also believe that when a church burns, it's not only Christians who suffer, but people in general. Imagine a beautiful old stave church. What happens when it burns? The Christians feel despair, God's house is destroyed, and ordinary people will suffer from grief because something beautiful was destroyed. So you end up spreading grief and despair, which is a good thing. Vikernes was released from prison in 1993, and he had parted ways with Euronymous after many disagreements, such as arguments about money. Euronymous had not been paying Vikernes the royalties he was due for his music. He also believed that Euronymous was a phony, not living the life he preached. This was because Euronymous had closed down the record store because he was scared of the attention it was getting from police. People in the genre also began to see that Euronymous was a fake, and he began to lose credibility in the scene. Euronymous blamed Vikernes for this, and tension brewed, especially as Vikernes, after his stint in prison, was now seen as the most hardcore member of the black metal community. It has been alleged by him that he unearthed a plot by Euronymous to kill him. He claimed Euronymous planned to use a stun gun on him, tie him up and tore him to death whilst videotaping. Euronymous was to use a meeting to sign a music contract as a ruse to ambush him. But Vikernes instead decided to confront his former band member before he could carry out his plan. Vikernes drove with Mayhem guitarist Snow to Euronymous' apartment in Oslo. Allegedly, when Vikernes arrived unpronounced, Euronymous kicked him in the chest and ran to his kitchen to grab a knife. The two allegedly began fighting on the stairs, and Vikernes came out the victor as Euronymous lay dead in the stairwell with 23 wounds in his body. This is the official narrative of Vikernes, who claimed self-defense. However, this has been heavily disputed even by himself, later on writing in a blog post that he chased Euronymous down the stairs. As the law saw it, it was a premeditated murder planned between himself, Snore, and a black metal drummer named Faust. The plan was for Vikernes and Snore to drive to Oslo to commit the murder. A third member was to be enlisted to stay at home to provide a fake alibi, renting movies to play in their apartment in Bergen, and using Vikernes' credit card to provide evidence that they were never in Oslo. In 1994, Vikernes was sentenced to Norway's maximum term of 21 years. He was found guilty of not only murder, but also for the arson of 3 churches, the attempted arson of a 4th church, and the theft and storage of 150 kilograms of explosives. On the day of his sentencing, a further 2 churches were burned in Norway, presumably as a symbolic statement of support. Snore was given an 8-year sentence as an accomplice after testifying against his bandmate. In 1994, Necro Butcher and Hellhammer would once again reform the band to finally release their first album, De Mysteris Dom Satanis. This album featured elements from all Mayhem band members, including those in prison or in the ground. This album is widely regarded as one of the most influential albums in the black metal genre, not only for the infamy surrounding the album, but also for the quality and unique sound of the music, which was ahead of its time. The band is still around today, with Necro Butcher remaining the only original member. Their last album was released in 2019. Vikernes did not mellow out during his incarceration. He is alleged to have started a neo-Nazi organisation named Heathen Front. However, himself and the organisation denies this. He released 2 albums and 2 books whilst in prison, and in 2009 he was released from prison after serving only 15 years for murder. He also became an influential figure on YouTube before mass censorship hit the platform. His channel was terminated as it allegedly spread white supremacist content.